You've landed on The Substance. I'm your host, Philip Marinello, and I'm so glad you decided to join us here today. Here at The Substance, we're looking to have conversations that help us all better appreciate goodness, truth, and beauty. Previous guests include folks like Film Spotting's Josh Larson, Marta Georgievich, actor-director John Carroll Lynch, Dan McCoy of the Flophouse podcast, and our pals over at Letterboxd, Slim and Mitchell. This week, I have the pleasure to have... I think on for the first time for the Substance feed, Jen and Sarah over at the Movies and Us podcast. I listen to a whole lot of shows, and I have a lot of friends that have movie podcasts. And one of the things that I like so much about Movies and Us really is that, really it comes down to their chemistry. It really feels like the experience of listening to their show is just like sitting down with some friends after watching a movie, just talking about it. And it's a really great listen. So, been a long time listener and friend of theirs. I've been on their show several times. As of me recording this intro right now, my last appearance on their feed, I believe, was when we talked Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey Part 2, which was a lot of fun. But if you're listening to this episode, the week it releases, it just kind of happened this way. I recorded this episode with them quite a while ago, but if you're listening on the week of release, I will actually be on their show this week talking Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. So you get kind of a double feature Substance Movies and Us crossover this week. So we didn't plan it. It just kind of turned out that way. So after you listen to this episode, go over to their feed and check out our Memories of Murder show. It was a great time. Whether you're a new listener or you've been with us for a very long time, it is always a good idea, if you haven't yet, to open up whatever podcast app you're listening to this on and hit the 5-star button. If you happen to be listening on Apple, we appreciate it if you take a minute, write a sentence or two review of why you listen to the show, why you enjoy it, what keeps you coming back. And it helps other people find the show. We appreciate that very much. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Jen and Sarah on Kogonada's debut film, Columbus. So have you guys have done both of the Kogonada movies before on various channels or iterations of your show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, and how long has your guys' show been running? Because I know it has gone through a couple different iterations and titles and formats.
Yeah. We just turned 6.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. And then we did a rebrand, oh gosh, a year and a half.
A year and a half ago?
Yeah, we did a rebrand. But yeah, 6 years. Crazy. Time flies.
So yeah, listeners, you are listening to Jen and Sarah of Movies and Us, a show I've enjoyed for a while, shouted out a few times. I feel like I've done your show, what, 2, 3, 4 times, something like that?
Yeah. We've had you on a bunch, on
handful
some
of
big
times.
Hitters too, some big ones.
Dang. Yeah, Barbie was a lot of fun. I was very, I felt good about that because I was like, even like, I'm sure a few people listened because I shared it, but I was like, people are going to listen to that Barbie one, and I hope I didn't embarrass you guys.
No, it was great. And then we had you on for Killers of the Flower Moon, one of my
Oh yeah, my guy
movies.
Scorsese, Jen.
Yeah.
I remember that Marty month you reached out to me because I reached out after a few of your episodes. I feel like you and me are more on a similar wavelength, but when Sarah and I are on, I feel like Kogonada. We talked about it on the Alien episode. Sometimes I will DM Sarah like, come on, like 2.5, 2 stars. Like, what are you doing? But I feel like Kogonada. I feel like this is going to be a great episode where we're all very praising rather the film.
Yeah. This is gonna be a good one. We get to gush about this movie together. It'll be great.
So, do you guys remember this movie came out like 2016, 17? Maybe wider. It came out later. I think. Okay, 2017 is supposedly when it came out. I don't know if that was like festivals or whatnot, but when did you guys see this? Was this something that like
you had heard about or were excited about or stumble upon it? How did you guys kind of first come across Columbus?
I actually don't remember, which is wild. I do remember I did not watch this in a theater, and I think Sarah and I we reviewed it. I don't remember when. Sarah, you might have discovered this movie and was like, "We
Yeah,
need to watch this
I
movie."
we reviewed it very early on in our show. I stumbled upon it probably in I want to say 2017, but like it was at home though. Like I was scrolling through a streaming
Wow.
service and was like, I don't know what to watch, and I saw the cover art for Columbus, and I was like, oh, that looks intriguing. Let me watch it, and
Oh wow,
absolutely
episode
loved it.
18 of your show. That was
Yeah.
early, early.
Yeah. It was very early.
I didn't even realize it was that
So,
early.
I
Dang.
I I think that ended up, and I don't remember, like, where we are in time, but we do a top
Mhm.
10 list at the end of every year, and I think that one ended up on my top 10 list. So, I know that we had talked about it multiple times, but I don't know if that came before or after, we reviewed it. But, yeah, I saw it, instantly fell in love with it, started telling everybody about it. You had to watch Columbus, so I feel like I was maybe an early adopter of this movie.
Very nice. What about you, Jen? So Sarah kind of brought it to your attention?
I think so, yeah. I don't remember how that conversation played out, but anyway, we reviewed episode 18 apparently, which is really early. I didn't realize it was that early.
It's the
And
benefit of having friends with good taste.
yes, indeed. She does that often. I love it. And I just remember us gushing about this movie the first time around. Like it was so different from the landscape of movies that exist out there, especially in the US. And so we heaped upon praise for this movie. And it was exciting to see After Yang a couple years later,
Oh,
also by
the best.
Kogonada.
I'm
Yeah,
sure that'll be a substantive cinema episode at some
good,
point.
perfect. Yeah, yeah. So this director, this creator, Coconut, is really such clarity and vision. And yeah, we gushed about the first time. I'm sure we're gonna gush about it more. And it was cool to rewatch again this movie and notice so many more things now. So
Yeah,
excited to talk
I
about this.
I came to it. I was vaguely aware of Kogonada as like a name because that's just a unique name. I had heard some buzz about Columbus when it came out. I probably read a few different people's reviews of it, and it just kind of fell off my radar because like there were so many things coming out, and yeah, 2017. I was like, um, yeah, that was a little bit of a tumultuous point in my life, and I was still going to the
Yeah.
movies here and there, but I wasn't like seeing all the cool new stuff all the time. But then when After Yang came out, I was like, this looks incredible.
Mhm.
And I saw it. I was blown away. I loved it. I was like, this is one of the best like modern films, period. And I love it. And I just want to like watch it forever. And then I went back immediately after I watched After Yang and watched Columbus. And I was like, okay, like he's only made 2 features, but
Mhm.
this is going to be one of my guys forever.
Mhm. Yeah, and this time around watching Columbus again, I was reading a little bit more about Coconut and how he got his start in the film world through video essays and particularly
Yes.
uh like analysis around visual pieces and the way that angles and shots are constructed. I actually haven't watched any of his video essays yet, but I'm like, oh
I've
my
watched a
gosh,
few and
what a window into his brain.
they're
Yeah, how did I?
beautiful and you can definitely see, especially I
Mm,
mean, both of his films are just gorgeous.
yes.
But you can absolutely see, especially in Columbus, where it's all about architecture and
Yeah.
space and like symmetry and dissonance and all these things. You can definitely see his visual essays, which are amazing. I've seen a few of them.
Mm,
I think the Criterion Channel had a collection of several of them at
mhm,
times over the years. But yeah, you can really tell that the man loves just the form.
mhm.
And yeah, what an insane debut. Like I love debut films in general, and there's plenty of people who do like incredible work right out of the gate, but this is one like I feel like this is one of like an elite class. Like there are like, oh, that was very good, but this is like, yeah, he I'm sure he can get better in ways, but it's not like, oh, that's a cool rough draft and you can kind of kind of see
Mm.
his skills and what he's going to do in the future, you're like, no, this is like a home run right out of the gate.
Yeah, I had that thought about like 15, 20 minutes into this film. I just had to think to myself, like, this is a masterpiece. Like, it's insane. Everybody needs to watch it. And I think especially the second time around, seeing that there's so many more layers to this film that I just didn't have brain capacity for the first time was really exciting, really fascinating. Thematically, I think it's like a visceral sensory experience, obviously. And I think I was probably experiencing a lot of that the first time around. But the second time around, there's so much contemplative, philosophical ideas in this film that are these little vignettes and conversations between people that strung together create a whole, but individually also there's so much richness to really mull on. And that was really neat to see of how there's so much depth in this film, in addition to obviously the stunning visuals, the visceral experience with the senses.
So let's get into it here in a second. I'll read the Letterbox synopsis and
Okay.
then we can kind of jump off from there. Letterbox synopsis reads: When a renowned architecture scholar falls suddenly ill during a speaking tour, his son Jin finds himself stranded in Columbus, Indiana, a small Midwestern city celebrated for its many significant modernist buildings. Jin strikes up a friendship with Casey, a young architecture enthusiast who works at the local library. It's a little run on y, but basically, yeah, it's about a guy who comes home for some family issues, meets a young woman who's also dealing with some family issues. A lot of interesting parallels, overlaps, kind of mirror images of each other, and it's very like I watched this with my wife again. I'd seen it before. She had watched it for the first time. She's like, "You really love movies where like kind of nothing happens." And it's like, well, yeah, in a way, but I feel like movies like this that aren't super flashy or snazzy or like really like spectacular, you can like fill up with all of the things of life and existence and relationships and philosophy. Like, I feel like that's where some of the best, most substantive, if you will, stuff kind of occurs.
It's one of those movies that invites you to be reflective and contemplative, and I feel like that's really rare, and so when you find a movie like this that is so still and quiet and intentional in doing that all throughout, I feel like it's such a breath of fresh air. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I'm continually drawn to this movie, is just to have that reminder of like, stop, slow down. Let's take a moment to reflect. Let's take a moment to appreciate beauty. Like, let's just be present. And I feel like that's such a rarity to find in film.
One of the things that struck me more this time, and this was only my second full viewing of it, um, was that in Kogonada, I listened to a few interviews with him and read some of his read and watched some of his interviews, and he's very open about his influences and his philosophy. But I was struck, are either of you fans of Ozu? Have you gotten into any of his stuff? The Japanese filmmaker, a ton of his stuff's in the Criterion Collection, but he is known for like the two main things he's known for are family dramas and just like having a still camera in a room that doesn't move and just like having people talking. And it really struck me on this viewing how camera hardly ever moves, and often the shots are very wide. I mean, and it's kind of built into the premise because it's architecture is a big theme of the film. It's part of these people's lives explicitly, so you can kind of almost even get cute with it, like, oh, like, look, check out these incredible buildings. Like, it's a very clever device. Like, it doesn't seem like a cheap trick or like a film student kind of thing, but it really does kind of fit of just like, hey, like, let's frame this beautiful shot, put these people in it, sometimes not even see their faces, sometimes their backs to the camera, sometimes they're very far away, but you're just having people existing in space kind of interacting with the space and also kind of like going into themselves as well.
Yeah, there's a large number of shots where our protagonists are not the center of attention. And it's framed really interestingly because the architecture and the landscape and the trees are the focal points, and Casey's like side of her head with her hair is like in the far bottom right hand corner, and it's so close to the edge of the frame that like you wouldn't naturally think to put your subject in that location, bottom right, truly, like she is like barely in frame, because that focus is on the space around her, and then we cut to the next shot with her as the focus. But there were so many shots like that I was like, this is framed so differently from the way that any other filmmaker might think about how they frame their subjects and what their subject even is. He's kind of playing with that idea of what is the object of our attention.
Well, and I really loved how a few times it's really wonderful writing, because I feel like in a lesser director writer's hands, some of the stuff would come off kind of hammy. But like Jin's character, was he Jin? I forget if it was Jin or the Culkin, her friend at the library, but one of them was talking directly about like there being like a crisis of interest, and like oh no, that was the Culkin guy outside. It's like, what interests us, like and that theme is just kind of said out loud as a philosophical musing. Like they're kind of going back and forth outside the library just about like what interests us, and that's kind of the movie itself declaring like, I want you to think about like what has your attention and why. And then there's another scene where, again, it's almost too cute, but it's like really good writing, where they were Casey makes her mom a meal, and she's talking about like, the mom's like, this meal's kind of bland, and she's like, no, I didn't put a ton of spice in it, so like you could really taste the flavors. And it's like, man, like again, almost like very obvious, but really wonderful and really kind of beautiful.
Those were two scenes that I wrote down as well that like really struck me. The one with Casey and Gabe at the library where they're talking about like video games and books and this
Yeah.
concept of attention and interest. I thought that scene was so funny and clever because I think it's Casey or Gabe that says, "Are we losing interest in things that matter? Are we losing interest in everyday life?" And then there's a clear shot of like beautiful sprinklers watering the greenery around her, and that's been in frame behind her the entire time in the scene. And the movie's basically like, hey, did you even notice that there's this beautiful thing happening? And I thought that that was just a like fun little exclamation point to the point that he's making, obviously between these two characters, but at the larger level, like this film is so much slower and mellow and contemplative than most other films that we get that have that sense of like forward momentum constantly. And the film is kind of asking you like, are you going to lose interest in me? Like, will you slow down enough to go at the pace that I'm going to lead you on? And if so, there's a lot here, but are you willing to go on that journey? And I just love the way that that scene is constructed, and then visually the like, did you notice the sprinklers? It's beautiful.
What about you, Sarah?
No, I also love that, going back to some of the visuals too, because the camera is so still, and we don't have these quick cuts like we're used to seeing in films, and those quick cuts are, to keep us engaged and make sure that there's visual interest, so that there's that feeling of momentum. And this film goes in the exact opposite direction, and it's a still wide shot, and you'll see people moving in and out of the frame. But I love that those still shots, there's so much visual interest in there if you're willing to pay attention. So it's what the architecture looks like, or what the inside of the room looks like, and all of the things that are in there. It's how the people are moving around in the frame. It's the interesting dialogue that's happening. So there's this really fun balance between stillness and that theme of interest that we're seeing play out visually throughout the film. So I love that this theme that's being expressed audibly to us is also being played out visually, and for us to grapple with as we're watching the film.
So whether it be like scenes or themes or relationships, like what has stuck with you over the years? Because I mean, you guys did this several years ago. What has stuck with you over the years, and what has kind of what was fun to revisit? What was new? What was fresh? Like, what are your before you rewatched it for this episode? Like, what were kind of your impressions, kind of over the years? Like, what has stayed with you, and what was new about it?
Yeah, for me, I remember how meditative this film was the first time around. And I think that was really striking to me because it obviously is so different. It's an outlier in the landscape of what movies are today. And, the way that movies heighten emotion, heighten drama. And this movie actually has a lot of emotion. It's not in the way that we often will see it displayed in a more melodramatic way in films. And so the kind of subtlety and nuance and meditative slowness of this movie is something that I always thought back to whenever I think about this movie. And a lot of that was in the visceral sensory experience of those still wide shots, the long shots, the raindrops, the silence in this film. Um, what
Yeah, I
strikes
think that
me,
room, like you said, like when gives you so much room to breathe, and I'm sure that that's by design. Like, I think that necessarily sticks with you more than like, oh, a clever plot twist or just a cool camera angle. Like, you're getting like 10, 20, 30 seconds, sometimes several minutes of just like, here's this setting. Sometimes it's people moving through it, sometimes there's dialogue, like, but you're getting like one image for far longer than we're used to having it. Like, I feel like that can't not stick with you more.
yeah, the opening like 3 or 4 shots of this film with the raindrops, I was just like breathing a sigh of relief of like, "Ah, I feel like I'm being welcomed back into this headspace that and a worldview that Columbus is inviting us into." And when you emerge after this film, you like almost don't want to leave. You like want to stay in that lens of being able to view the world through the beauty and the smallness and the peace and the noticing of these things. So that really stood out to me the first time around. What I didn't realize or remember, or I felt maybe more deeply this time around, is how much transformation our two main characters go through. I think I kind of felt like, oh, not much happens in this movie. These two people spend time, they have a lot of conversations, and then the movie ends. But watching it the second time around, I'm like, these two humans have gone through such transformation in and of themselves by the end. It's not big and flashy, but something fundamentally has shifted in how they view themselves and their place in the world. I didn't remember that from the first viewing of this movie. So,
No, that was
uh,
exactly my
yeah,
experience as well. Like,
really,
I
okay,
remember being moved, I remember it being beautiful, but this time I was like, "What?"
yeah,
Like, it definitely, like, their influence and impressions on each other, I just felt a lot more stronger this time. Before we get to Sarah's, just a quick question for both of you. How long do we think, like, what amount of time passed? Is this like a season, a couple weeks, a couple months? Like, it's definitely some time, not a ton, but enough time. Like, it's definitely, I think, more than just a week or two, but like, I could not tell.
yeah. My guess or impression was that it was like 2-3 weeks,
Okay.
because Jin has that conversation with his friend at the towards the end of the film where he's like, "How long do I need to be here?" And I feel like when you like go to another city because a family member is sick or whatnot, you can take off work or whatnot and get away for 2-3 weeks. But after that, you really start to think about like what
Yeah.
is
Like,
my what are my
how long
plans
is this
here?
going to be? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking it was a couple of weeks. And also I think the power of their connection, having sparked so quickly, I would imagine that like the influence they have on each other over a few weeks would be just as strong, that they didn't need months and months of time to get to know each
Sure.
other, because I think that that bond is formed pretty quickly between the two of them. So my guess was a couple of weeks. Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I think that's a good guess. I didn't know. I actually once the movie was over, that was something that I was wondering. I was like, "Man, how how long was this? And I don't know. I didn't
Because
have a
I was like,
guess.
is it maybe like the summer? Because I agree with you, Jen, what you said about the um, just like the time off work, like that was a part of it. But he was also doing some work remotely. Kind of, they were kind of riding him a little bit. But with Casey's journey, it's kind of like she had to make a decision to do it kind of before summer was over. It kind of felt like some people were going back to school, or some people were doing jobs or internships or opportunities, and she was trying to like make her decisions before that season was over or something like that. But anyway, Sarah, what has stuck with you over the years, and what was familiar and what was fresh on this viewing?
Yeah, I think before rewatching it, the things that stood out to me were the things that Jen said about it being like slow and quiet and contemplative and meditative, and also the visuals and this focus on architecture, which is so fun and interesting to me. Like I love walking around and like discovering interesting looking buildings and just like staring at them, and it's fun to watch a movie and seeing people who do that too and have like even a greater appreciation for buildings than even I do. So I remember being so enamored by all of the visuals in this and looking at these really interesting buildings that these different architects dreamt up, and just being kind of in awe of them alongside of our characters. And that theme of finding beauty and awe even in these like mundane simple things. um, and then upon rewatch, what really stood out to me this time was that relationship between Jin and Casey. And I was surprised by some of their conversations and how they communicated with each other. I thought was really unique and interesting, and the way that they are able to, even when they don't know each other very well, set boundaries and make clear like, oh hey, that wasn't okay, and then their quickness to apologize. And the way that, if somebody makes a mistake and says something that maybe they shouldn't, or says something that maybe hurts the other person, they don't hold it against the other, and they're able to like continue on in this relationship. And so I just loved seeing that kind of develop and blossom over the course of the film, and just seeing how healthy their communication is throughout, because I feel like again that's not something that you often see in films. We love the drama, and that's the exciting part, but this is just kind of normal conversations between people who are getting to know each other and have a level of respect for one another.
Yeah, their relationship is like unfortunately like anomalous in cinema. Like Jen mentioned it earlier, like it very much feels like a world cinema type movie. It doesn't feel like your standard American, even a little bit. Like it feels more sophisticated in a way than like even your standard American indie fare. Like I really, and I loved it the first time, but just getting it fresh, it's like, man, this is a wonderful story. Like obviously there are not enough movies of many genres, and I'm not the world's biggest rom-com guy, but whenever people bring it up, it's like, yeah, like we do need more like good rom-coms and things like that. But we don't have it. Like we hardly have any. I can't think of another movie like this off the top of my head that's just like a non-romantic story about people who grow to like care for and genuinely love each other, but there's nothing weird, or like there's not the romantic or the sexual or even like the weird selfish thing. Like their relationship is about bettering each other, like discovering themselves and bettering each other. It's not about getting something, and not that getting something is bad, but like their relationship is just very unique and one that you heart. And a lot of times when it's like, oh, it's an older guy, younger girl story, you kind of know some of the tropes it goes down. And this didn't do any of that. And that was so refreshing.
Yeah, and what's also like interesting about that is that the movie the movie plays a little bit in the gray area with that conversation that he has with his friend around like, do you like her, you know? And
Sure.
and the movie kind of just leaves it open-ended, and it's kind of like it doesn't really matter, you know? And so it's not clear that they're just friends, but it's also not clear that they're more than that. And the movie's like, here's just two human beings that have built a connection, regardless of all of the other labels and stuff that we often are fascinated by as human beings, you know, like this is just two souls that have connected deeply. What
Yeah,
it is,
they have a
it's
deep that Parker Posey
clear.
scene was very funny. But yeah, no, it was clear that these people are just drawn to each other and are bringing out good things in each other in very healthy ways.
Yeah.
And I was struck, I'd forgotten about it. But I was struck, it was kind of funny and potentially awkward, but it was handled, but I thought very smoothly with both the writing and the acting, because she was just gushing about how much she loves architecture, and he almost kind of like, not quite dismissively, but like almost dismissively, he's like, "Oh, like my dad would have loved you," and she's like, "What, you don't?" And it wasn't like flirty, but it almost just felt like reflexive, like, and he's like, "No." But it wasn't like, "No, not no, I don't care about you." But it's just, that's just a weird question to say. What, like, "Oh, my dad would have loved you." What, you don't love me? Like, that's just kind of weird, but it was a normal, very human moment that was, I feel like, in all the ways, in the writing and the performance, it was just handled so smoothly. And like before, like as it was happening, it felt like, oh, this might stick out and be weird, but like the moment it passed, there's like, they're just back to talking, and that's not like a weird lingering thing that hangs over the rest of their conversation or the movie. That's just kind of a thing that happened.
And it's in line with kind of the patterns of their conversation too, because I feel like a lot of times they'll like be in a flow and then talking, and then I feel like it's often Casey who says something like weird or that's like a little
Well, and
off,
that's the
and
generation
then
gap too, because she's like
yeah.
in her early 20s, and the actual actor I think was in his like late 40s. As so, like,
Mhm,
there's the generation gap, maybe potentially slightly a cultural gap, that he's even kind of rude to her at the beginning. Like,
mhm.
she offers him a cigarette, and then he gives her a hard time about like, just what, like, you think we're all whatever, like, because he's Korean.
Yeah, it's so good. So I love that those moments feel in line with all of the other
Yeah.
conversations that they've had. It doesn't feel out of place for her to have that like quip back of, "Oh, but you don't." And then they just keep moving on cuz like,
And
"Oh, that's just a weird thing she
he's like
said."
a 40-year-old man. He's like, "What?
Exactly.
No." It's like, you're ridiculous.
I think because their connection feels so close and so bonded and so intimate that we, with our trained brains, having experienced movies and romance and movies, like kind of expect it to go somewhere and lead somewhere as it would in another movie. And so it feels really subversive and exciting that this movie's like, people can just connect with each other. Like souls can connect deeply in a really meaningful way, and it doesn't need to be consummated or need to lead to anywhere else. But the closeness of the relationship is what we often see in romance and in close friendships between, you know, like same gendered or very close in age people in movies or in
Well,
TV. And so it
exactly.
kind of
Like the
plays with
difference in
that.
age and it being like a male female relationship, like,
Mhm.
we as the audience bring all that to it.
Yeah.
But there is that true intimacy. Like, it's, and not that romantic intimacy is impure, but like, there is just a pure,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to call it other than love, but it's, there are various like levels of that. Like, the way that it's quote unquote consummated is by them challenging each other
Yeah.
to like get out of their ruts and make the right decisions, which is like the most loving thing we can do for each other, to like push each other towards growth.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that you see the way that they care for each other in these like small ways too. You know, like when she's leaving, she says like, "I don't want to leave my mom," and then she has that follow up small comment of like, "Well, I don't want to leave you here either." as you're caring for your father. So you see how quickly those feelings and thoughts come of like the separation from both her mother, but now also the depth of the connection that she has with Jin too. So it comes out in these small little ways without them needing to like express it deeply to each other. But it's more subtle in their care and the ways that it comes out in their conversations, or
Well, we
or
haven't
not
talked.
even verbally. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And we hadn't really got into that yet, but I was more struck and impressed on this viewing just how the framing is done so nicely. So Jin is in town in Columbus because his father is ill and he feels compelled to be like, my father's elderly. This may be it, maybe not. I don't know, but I feel it's like it's my duty or whatever to kind of come, even though they're not really on speaking terms. Their relationship is not great. So he's there he is there and he doesn't want to be with a parent who doesn't really want a relationship with him. And Casey is kind of stuck there. We eventually learn the spoilers for the movie that aren't really that super spoily, but her mother's a recovering drug addict and she feels like she has to stay with her mother to like parent her mother. Like her mother does love her, but her mother is unable to like be fulfill that parent role. So Casey is having to fill that parent role for her mother, and she's getting to the point where it's like, man, if she stays there much longer, it'll be very, very hard to move on to the next stage of her life, which is the appropriate thing for Casey to do. Like, she's like, should I do grad school? Should I get a job? I've got these opportunities, but I mean, Columbus is a beautiful town, especially if you're an architecture nerd, but like staying just there isn't really, and not that there isn't dignity in caring for your family, but it is kind of like she is there and it's not the very best thing. Like her relationship with her mother is not the healthiest. Like it's good that they have each other. It's good that she cares. It's good that she's trying to help keep her mom on the straight and narrow, but she's almost enabling her mom to both continue, and she's kind of using that as avoiding like pursuing her own growth and potential. And they have various conversations where they both kind of they learn more about each other, they reveal themselves. It's not just like all the conversations flow so smoothly. It's very like a Richard Linklater type deal. Like a lot of the conversations reminded me of some of those movies. Like it's very naturalistic and nothing feels out of place. But they eventually get to like the relational progress is she's like, hey man, like you don't seem like you're caring about your dad enough. And he's like, hey, you seem like you're using caring about your mother as an excuse not to grow. And like that's kind of the climax of the movie. And it's not a fight. And then they move like they're upset, they walk away, and then in the next scene they're just back to talking about other stuff and buildings and life. Like it's just so like I can't think of another movie kind of where stuff like that happens.
I love that scene on the bridge, or it's like there's an archway. I remember the archway distinctly because the camera is still, the two protagonists, they walk to the perfect point where their heads are still underneath the silhouette of the arch. And I was like, they must have figured that out. You know what I mean? Of like,
Oh, the
you,
blocking was insane because that's actually
yes.
the end of that scene is one of the very few times the camera moves. So the camera's
Mm,
still, they both walk up to it, like they're looking at each other. They have
yeah.
like I don't know if you exactly
There's,
want to call it a confrontation. They have their
yeah.
scene and then he walks away from the camera kind of upset and the camera is like pulling back, it's like rolling dollying back as Casey just stands there and he walks away, and it's like a very
Yeah.
after having almost completely still cameras the whole time, it's it wasn't jarring but it was very effective. You're like, oh, there's like a separation now between them, but then they're like right back at it in the next scene.
Mhm. Yeah, it's fitting that the camera would move to heighten that moment because that moment is the first and primary big rift that happens between the two of them. And it's interesting because what they say to each other is the harsh truth that they both needed to hear. But they do it out of a place that is very human, which is that they're hurt and that someone's like pressing on a sensitive area for them, and the natural reaction is to lash out at the other person in the area that you also know that they feel is most sensitive for them. So I love how human the reactions are. And I think it makes us as viewers feel connected to them. But then it also showcases just like how we respond when we feel like someone's pressing in on something that is maybe a reality that we know or we don't want to acknowledge, or we haven't come to terms with it in some way. And for someone to shine a light on it is uncomfy, but sometimes it's exactly what we need as well. So that scene is really genius in the way it's written as well.
And I love that both of these characters, they go on they're opposites and they go on opposite journeys too. But both are like growth journeys, but their steps to grow are the opposite of each other's. And I love that it's not cheesy or gimmicky, but it all makes sense even though they're polar opposites taking opposite steps of growth. It's this
Well, because they're at different
wonderful.
stages of life, right?
Yes,
And
and
that's
so
such the beauty of like a good family drama. Like
mhm,
Casey's the kid, she's dealing with her mother, who's probably Jin's age or slightly older, and then
Mm.
Jin is dealing with her dad. Like you have the three generations, and it's like each person should be on their own path, and the drama is like them reconciling with I need to do my path right and not try to be on a different one.
yeah, and it feels so natural, and because they're in those different places, then they're able to challenge each other in that way that they need because they have such different personalities and experiences and all of the things. So just another example of the writing and the overall structure of this film feeling so natural and not feeling forced or manufactured or any of that. So those conversations and those moments of conflict just feel organic and just normal part of life.
I was also struck, I wrote it down in my notes, it's a scene that happens pretty early in the movie, probably in the first 30 minutes or so. Jin's kind of talking. He goes, yeah, like Casey's a big architecture nerd. She loves it. She knows all about it. She's talking all about it. And he's kind of like, yeah, my dad talked a lot, obviously. I've read this and that, but like it's not really my thing. And then there, Casey's showing him around town, all the buildings. And who knows how many days later, like he becomes interested and he starts talking about it. And she's like, "What? Like I thought you thought all this was boring or whatever." He goes, "Well, yeah. I was looking through my dad's things and I picked up a book. He read on it and like just the very simple character growth. Like usually character growth, talk about like the meal with all the big spices. Usually character growth is something huge, but in that moment Jin had the growth of not even disliking it, just not something he was interested in because it was not something he was really aware of. And then he read one of his father's books and it enriched his life. It helped shift his perspective. And he goes, "Oh, like well actually, like this hospital and this rehab center, like the way this bridge goes to this, it's all about like the concept of healing." She's like, "Sounds like you kind of are interested in this." And just the beauty and the value of brushing up against other people. Like he probably picked that book up because of both his dad and Casey, and just he he went to being a little bit happier because his world was richer and he had something that he appreciated more.
And I think what also makes perhaps the growth that these two characters have feel really believable is that the movie doesn't just focus on their relationship the whole time. There's a lot of shots intercut of them by themselves, them home. There's lots of shots of Jin at the inn by himself or
Yeah,
going through
just
his
messing
father's
around.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like playing around with his father's hat. And you just imagine, you just feel the thoughts just rolling in his mind. We don't know what he's thinking about, but those shots last really long. And it's almost us also reflecting on the previous conversation that just happened in the scene. Similarly, there's a lot of shots of Casey like chopping vegetables in her kitchen, in her home by herself. And I think that helps us feel like by the time they get to the next conversation, they've had time to think and reflect and to have that growth and change in perspective. And it's not just shot after shot after shot or scene after scene of them together constantly talking, but we get to break out of that for them to be alone, which I think really sells that idea really well, that like, you know, they really are transforming the way that they are thinking as they spend time together.
I was also struck by, again, relatively early on, like kind of the first scene where they go, their relationship feels like it kind of deepens. They're going around at the buildings, and she volunteers like a partial bit of information about like, well, yeah, like I was just kind of going through a hard time then. He goes, okay, like what? Like she brought it up but didn't fully give it, and she goes, nah, I don't really want to talk about it. And he goes, no, like I'm interested. And it's not like, oh, I want the juicy details. It's like, no, like
What up?
I'm here with
Mm,
you. We are talking. Like I'm interested. Like I care. And so she eventually kind of shares some of the stuff about like her mom and the struggles, and like it was legitimately funny, but it was awkward. And like she was like telling him but kind of didn't want to really tell him. And then it was like when she said it out loud, it almost like didn't compute
mm,
for her, and she didn't like it when she talked about like her mom being hooked on drugs. She didn't like go right into it. She's like, well, like I don't remember exactly what the line was, but she's like, yeah, there's a lot of like drug problems around here. And he's like, so were you
was your
on
mom?
drugs? And she's like, no. So
Yeah.
your mom? And then she's just like laughs it off, and it takes her a while to like say it out loud. And when she does, she's so like goofy and awkward about it, because it's kind of like she's never really like, she doesn't know
Mm,
this guy. Like she's getting to know this guy. It's not like her buddy at the library or one of her mom's coworkers who knows and is trying to help her. Like this is a new person who she's kind of like bringing in and letting in, and it's just such kind of a weird thing for her to say. And it's funny and sweet and awkward and just so human, that interaction.
Yeah, there's so much vulnerability in that. And I love seeing those different reactions too, because it's hard to be vulnerable. And so I love that we get to see those defense mechanisms that she has, that we all have, and trying to like deflect with humor or whatever. And she keeps making fun of him when he asks, did your mom do meth? And she makes it into a joke, and it lasts for so long.
It lasts.
And
It's funny.
yeah.
Like you almost can't not
Yeah.
laugh. But she's like almost doing like an old school vaudeville. She's like, "Your mom, did she
Mhm.
do meth?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "What are
yeah.
you doing? What are you doing, Katie? Like you're doing like a bit, like you're doing a whole routine here. Like it's a yes or a no question." And then
Mhm.
eventually she's like, "Yeah, yeah." But like after she does this bit for like, it feels like a minute or two.
Mhm. And I just love that's just another example of how human they are, because we all deflected, we all have our defense mechanisms and all of those things, and I love the patience that he has to just sit in that space, and she can be uncomfortable and laugh it off and have these defense mechanisms, but like you said, he is interested and he cares, and so he's willing to just be still and be quiet and just wait until she is ready to be her vulnerable self, and she also makes space for him to be vulnerable too. So it's very cool to see how in their own way they make space for each other, and they also challenge each other when needed.
That scene I remember we talked about for probably so long when we reviewed this is the way that they go in and out of talking about something really hard and have those defense mechanisms. The thing that I noticed this time around watching that scene is how much he doesn't allow her to just shrink away from it. And that's a testament, I think, to his emotional intelligence to see that, like, it's something that she wants to be able to say. She just needs time to be able to say it. Versus, this could be also a really bad scenario where, like, she's genuinely not ready. And for him to continue to press would make her really uncomfortable. But he's understood her and observed her and can see clearly on what she needs. And she just needs time in space, but he doesn't allow her to just like run from it either. And so I think that's really fascinating, is to see how they've observed and learned each other to know when it's like truly uncomfortable. Maybe we back away from it for today, or hey, let's continue to sit here and press on it a little bit more. And I think it was neat to see a previous scene kind of mirror this a little bit perhaps, but she's talking about her favorite building. It's the glass bank that's in the modernist style, and she's, you know, rattling off all these intellectual facts about it, and he
Loved
continues to
that.
press her. Yes, and he says, no, I want to know what moves you. Like, I don't want to know all these facts, but like,
He's
what
like, "Why
moves
do you
you?
love this building?" She's like, "Well, in 17 da
It's
da
the
da."
first one
And
is
he
like
goes, "Oh, are facts why you love this building?" Like, kind of teasing her a little bit. She's like, "Well, obviously no." And he goes,
Mhm.
"Okay, like,
So
tell me."
yeah. Yeah. But his like perceptiveness to know that there's more and there's depth, and to that she is also excited to be able to share. Maybe not immediately, but he will allow her space to shed some of those defense mechanism and shed those walls is really neat. And she does the same for him too. So
Well, and not even shedding. I think with the mom being addicted to meth, that applies. In the scene that you were just talking about, though, that's probably like one of my the
mm,
top 3 scenes in the movie. Like
yeah.
that, I don't think that is much in that instance like a defense mechanism. I think that is that where the relationship is causing like that growth or that sharpening. Like she has it within her, maybe a little below the surface, and he's pushing her to dig deep. Like
Yeah.
she's like, it's there, and she's having trouble accessing it because like maybe she doesn't have all the tools, or she doesn't have like the focus, or maybe not the interest, but like she just hasn't really drilled down. And he goes, no, like drill down.
Mm-hmm.
And Kogonada beautifully, I actually, so there's not a full on commentary track on the DVD, but what's they do occasionally, which kind of bugs me. I wish they have a whole thing, but it was very effective. They have like a select scene commentary, and that was
Oh.
one of them that I watched, and it was with John Chu and Haley Liu, which I just realized rhyme, unintentional. Um, Neither of them knew. Well, actually, hold on. Before I get to there, I always start like 3 thoughts at once. Let me rewind. So in the scene, he pushes her, and she takes a beat because she's like, "No, this building moves me," and he goes, "Okay, that's what I want to know about. Don't tell me facts. Explain to me how a building can move you and like touch your soul." She takes a beat, and then she starts to tell him, but then it shifts to a very like close up of her face. Like the scene previously was like far out. Then it goes like to a close up of her face, but the dialogue cuts out, and then this just gorgeous music that is it's not it's hard to describe. I'm an appreciator of music, but I'm not like a big music guy. It's beautiful, and it's like soaring, but it is not heavy-handed. It's not like it hits it so hard, but it really is kind of the perfect, like it is like subtly a transcendent thing. As you can see, he has helped her make a breakthrough, and it's not about the specific words she uses to describe like why this particular building moves her. It's about in the climax of the scene is him helping her like take that next step in personal development, and like it just I mean, I wasn't quite weeping, but it really got me.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes too, and I love that it absolutely subverts your expectations, you know, cuz I'm ready to know. I'm like, "Okay, why are you excited about this building? This is cool. I want to know more.
Tell
I'm
me.
I'm also curious and interested. You've baited the hook. I'm here." And then the film goes, "No, that's not what this is about. This is about these two people connecting and growing and learning and appreciating life, appreciating beauty, appreciating being present." And I love that that scene is like, just be present in this moment. And you don't need to know all of the details. You can just feel what they're feeling without knowing the details.
And how relationships with other people will help you do that. Like, she could have probably eventually gotten there herself, but in that moment, it's him, like, metaphorically taking her hand and saying, like, come on, like, come, like, figure. So that's what I was going to say in the selected scene commentary. Neither one of them at the premiere knew, like, they did the scene, like, she had dialogue. She's like, I don't even remember what I said, but at the premiere, like, my jaw dropped, and they both said, like, if you're a working actor, like, it's hard to dissociate and appreciate the movie for the movie, but neither of them knew that Kogonada's plan was to cut out the dialogue and just have the close up with the music. And they were both like, we just started like our jaws hit the floor and we just started crying, like, and it felt like an out of body experience. Like, I'm watching an incredible movie versus, oh, like, on that day, this is what I had for lunch or whatever. So just a little bit of behind the scenes. I thought that was very cool.
That is so fascinating. It because I read that he wrote, directed, and edited
He
this
did. Yep.
film, and so that was fascinating to think about. I learned that after that little tidbit after watching the movie, but like the pacing of how shots are cut from one scene to the next, I think is really fascinating. It's something that I noticed this time around, which is that so many scenes have a hard cut where they end after a character says something really meaningful, and then you're just cut to the next moment. And there's often these like transitional shots of the town or the city or of nature, but whatever the last character said, often I found myself thinking about that as we were moving on to the next scene. So one of the ones that really stood out to me was, I think it was a conversation with her and Jin about her mom. And Casey says, I just feel like I should stay here. And then the scene ends, like they're in the middle of this really meaningful conversation. And then we're cutting to the next one. But like that last line from her almost like feels like it hangs in the air of like the weight of that. And then we're ushered on to the next moment. And it's just so different from the way that films typically would like have them like be like, okay, we should be getting back now, and like they drive back home, like the film's not interested in that at all, and it adds this extra punch and then gives us this air to really like feel the weight of what she just said as we head to the next moment.
I was also just showing early at the top. Sarah said something about how just relational intelligence and how the movie was just so genuine about things like that. I also really love the scene, and we like talked about part of it where Parker Posey was teasing him there. And so Jin is staying at this inn basically. That's kind of like his hub. And Jen was mentioning like every now and then they'll be like, okay, Casey's at her house doing laundry, making food, whatever, and he's messing around, looking at his dad's effects, trying to maybe do a little bit of work, figure stuff out, playing with his dad's hat. Um, but then Jin's dad has an assistant who we can surmise has been his assistant or been in his dad's life a long time, who's pretty much Jin's age, who I guess when she first came into his dad's life and they were both much younger, Jin was interested in. She was teasing him about that. And just with all the emotional tumultuousness of everything, they end up on a couch and they start kissing. And it's not like he's forcing it. It's not like she doesn't want to be doing that. But at a certain point, she's like, okay, like this can't progress from here. It's not like he is pushing it on her. Like, she is kissing him, but then she's like, okay, like that's it. we're done. And he's like, he doesn't push, but he goes like, really? Like we're both adults and this is a hard time. Like, are you sure? And she goes, no, I'm very sure. And he's like, oh, okay. And it and that scene also was done like, again, like many of the scenes, still camera pulled back. I'm pretty sure, and actually he did that a few times in the movie, like mirrors were employed. I don't even think you saw, they weren't even like fully in the frame. Like, we see Parker Posey's face because of a mirror on the wall somewhere, and then um uh Jin comes into it. I don't remember Parker Posey's character's name, so I'm saying
Eleanor.
sometimes the actors, sometimes the characters. Eleanor. So Eleanor, like, we see her in the mirror. He's walking around. He sits next to her. they kiss for like a little bit, but then she calls it off, and he goes, and then you see him then in like the bathroom mirror. He's like, okay, I guess I'll go to my room or whatever. And it's just such a nice, refreshing, kind of subversive scene because none of the standard things happen.
I love that shot. That is one of my favorite shots in the film when he's getting up to leave and you see Eleanor's face in the, I guess, the sitting area mirror, which is closer, and then you see Jin's face like half out of the frame of the mirror in the bathroom, and so he's further away and he appears smaller, and it's such a cool way to shoot. And obviously, like you said, the whole scene is from this angle, and we've seen them moving in and out of the frame, we've seen their reflection in the mirrors, but
And
I
by that
love
point in the
that
movie, it's
moment.
not weird.
Yeah.
It's not like, where are these characters? It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, they're there. Like,
Yeah, it's so visually interesting, and there's been this theme throughout the film, when Casey is talking about that one church where it's asymmetrical but balanced, and I love that the composition of that shot in Eleanor's room is that same way. It's asymmetrical, but it's so balanced and beautiful, and it's also showing all of these things about these characters, and now this distance between them and this gulf between them in the mirrors. So it's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie, and it takes my breath away every single time. It's gorgeous.
yeah, that's one of many scenes in the movies where like you could just study it for a week or two, like in a classroom, and just get so much from it. And I'm pretty sure in one of the early car scenes, he maybe did it more than once, but there was one scene in particular that it stood out because it was early in their relationship, and like, oh, this like almost 50-year-old guy and this 20-year-old girl are just sitting in a parked car together looking at a building, but it was in the car, the camera was in the back seat, and it was on the rear view mirror, and you just see Cassie's eyes, and like they're talking, and you're just like, man, this is done so well. I This is a movie I could watch. I mean, I don't think I would get tired of watching this movie. I'll be watching this and recommending it to people for quite a long time, and I can't wait to see whatever he does next.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be fascinating to see what he does next, especially going from Columbus to After Yang, where he has a whole host of
Gosh, I love
ideas
that
around
movie.
like AI and what it means to be human, and like it's he's playing in the sci-fi realm and this vision of like what the future could look like that doesn't look anything like the sci-fi movies that we watch, where it's all, like gray and dirty and industrial and warped, but there there's so much like that's organic about this vision of the future that he has, while also playing with these ideas of like what makes us human and our memories. It's just the man has so much stewing inside of his brain that I just can't wait to see what he does next.
He, I don't know if he was the showrunner. He had a significant role in the Apple TV Pachinko series, didn't he? Did he? I believe he directed
Oh,
several
hmm.
episodes,
I
wrote and
did hear that he
directed a few
directed some of
episodes.
the episodes for The Acolyte, I think, the Star Wars
He
series.
did do one or two of the Acolyte, yes, and I
I
was
haven't seen
thinking
it, so
that
I'm
did
going to
make
see
me a
those.
little bit more interested.
Yeah.
I love Star Wars, but there's way too much.
Yes, that's how I feel too.
But his new movie, it sounds like a bit of an amalgam between his first two. The log line is an imaginative tale of two strangers and the extraordinary emotional journey that connects them. So that's a big, bold, beautiful journey that's, I think, hitting festivals soon and maybe available and at your cool art house theaters in like
Mm,
November, December this year. Oh, next year, 2025. So maybe it'll
yeah.
hit festivals at the end of this year and then you can hopefully start to see it. But I will hopefully catch that in the theater if it's playing in Kansas City.
Hmm. And it seems to be categorized as a drama slash comedy, which is fascinating. I'm low key
Okay.
pissed that Columbus is categorized as a drama slash romance because I just feel like people will go in with a
Yeah,
set of
it's
expectations that
not
are wrong.
like
It's
I
not.
think there is a deep like love and care between them, but it is not romantic.
No, exactly. and people should not go in with that expectation and all of the,
Certainly not.
baggage that we take with what a
Well, and I
romantic
mean, John Cho has aged well, but I don't think people realize how old he is,
movie.
because like a lot of his famous roles that were from like 20, 25 years ago, he's like a college kid, and it's like that was a long time ago. Just because he has a good skincare routine and doesn't age as poorly as some, like the man's like in his
Mhm.
early 50s now.
But it's
Uh,
fascinating to see what he'll do with like a comedic maybe like flair in the next movie, because I don't know
it's got
about
a
y'all,
great
but
cast.
there were some moments in Columbus where I was like cracking up, and I was like, I don't know
Sure.
if I should be laughing right now, but the way they sass each other is really fun and lighthearted. That I would just, there's some moments where I just kind of laughed at myself. I'm like, I could just be this, I'm in a weird mood today, but uh it was funnier than I remembered it being from the first watch.
I also, one of you guys mentioned the asymmetrical church. I also really liked, just because I think Kogonada is a person of faith. I don't remember, like, I don't think he's talked about it a ton, but I know he's talked about it some, and I'm pretty sure he even used to, one of our previous guests, I think, um, used to have him as a film professor at a I think a Christian liberal arts college. Um, Perhaps I don't remember all the details, but I'm pretty sure he's at least faith adjacent. And I did really like how he pointed out how churches used to have architecture that had meaning, and how in this one the people were elevated above the person speaking, and like they were at eye level with each other to kind of just be like, hey, like as we're considering this thing, versus like, oh, this person is above you booming down and you have to take everything they say as like the absolute fact. And I just thought that was, and then talking like religion and monarchies, where it's like, yeah, there's definitely some good stuff, but like overall the system's pretty flawed. And I was like, that's, I I can't disagree with that.
That was one of the scenes that had me cracking up, where he's like, one of them says like, so you're anti-monarchy, isn't,
Yeah.
aren't we all?
Yeah.
And then the other one's like, well, you'd be surprised. Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, a couple really good lines. I think the one, and we kind of talked about this, but just that one line where just about appreciation, he says like, you grow up around something and it feels like it's nothing. Just kind of how we can become numb, and how our interest, like if we are not active participants in our life, in relationship with each other, challenging ourselves, seeking growth, like how all the beauty around us can kind of turn into nothing. Like I thought that that was extremely poignant.
Yeah, that's one of those lines that always hits me like a ton of bricks, because I can get so just focused on like what's in front of me, or I'm on a mission, or I'm thinking about 18 trillion other things. And I love that line in particular, but the whole film is just like, hey, nope, you can actually be present and you can enjoy these things and you can appreciate beauty and find beauty in the mundane, or the regular everyday stuff in life, if you are willing to just kind of open your eyes and see. And I love that the film is constantly inviting us to do that in the shot selection as well. And we'll go from this really really beautiful building, and then we'll see this tree or this flower, or these little things that we can appreciate and find beauty in. It doesn't have to be this big, gorgeous, modernist building, but we can notice this little wildflower that's just sitting over here on the side of the road. And that is still beautiful, and that is worth paying attention to. So I just, that line is so powerful. And then it's just in concert with just the rest of the thesis of the film, which just adds more meaning to it for me.
And I mean, disclaimers, blah 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 blah. Um, I do kind of really like, I love smoking in cinema, and I love how that ritual is part of, like, that's really the inception of their relationship. She offers him a cigarette, and they even acknowledge it in the movie. It's not the healthiest lifestyle, but the act of standing there and smoking, and it could be like drinking tea or something else. Um, that is an act where you kind of have to stand and exist. You are breathing, you're exhaling, you're looking around, and it gives you time to talk. And a lot of their breakthroughs happen when they are smoking together, and it's very cinematic, and I kind of love it. And obviously kids don't smoke, and if you do, don't smoke a bunch of garbage, but I did like that quite a bit. And they also verbally acknowledge, hey, we should probably like stop smoking. So they had their cake and ate it too, and I love it.
Yeah, we'll all take our celery sticks outside
Yeah,
and just
sure.
watch the rain fall.
Have some coffee or tea and just kind of
Yeah.
have something that is ritualistic and that you have to be present for, that is also communal and social and kind of can spur
Mhm.
conversation. Not saying go smoking, but anytime people smoke in movies, it's kind of my favorite.
Well, I think one time Sarah and I reviewed Mad Men, and we had
Oh,
this
the
whole thing around
greatest.
how like the cigarettes are all like a character on
The
the show.
coolest.
You
Mad
know?
Men. I mean, in modern cinema, Mad Men has some of the best smoking.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed.
So, I know this is kind of a your show thing. Do you guys on this viewing, what would your cutesy one sentence be of how would you summarize the movie in one sentence without having had time to prepare?
My one sentence summary would just be maybe put less spice in your curry.
Very nice.
I I don't know. I
No, that's
don't.
totally fair.
Details.
I'm too much of a contemplator. I was not prepared. I didn't go into this movie thinking about a one sentence summary.
No, you're good. You're good. Listeners who are not familiar with their show, they always do that at the top. And I've been pretty proud of most of my one sentence summaries, and I'm really excited for the next movie I'm doing with you guys. I can't wait for that. Um so actually before we do that, um you guys have your show, but what would maybe give me a handful or a couple of things. What have you been watching or reading that you have found of value that you'd want to recommend people check out, watch, listen to, read, whatever? Like, what have you been really enjoying lately that you think others should check out?
Perhaps two things come to mind. One is a show that we just reviewed actually on one of our other podcasts, TV and Us, Supacell. One of the most
Yeah, what is
interesting.
that?
It is created by Ratman, who is a musical artist, and he was really invested in creating music videos that were like these entire storylines, and then has now created a 6 episode Netflix show that just got renewed for a second season, which is very exciting. It's subversive in the superhero genre, which, as we all know, is like highly
Superhero, okay.
saturated.
It is?
All black cast, covering, kind of advocating for sickle cell disease that exists within Black communities, but then
Interesting.
playing with that concept and idea where these characters have superpowers that they discover. And we won't spoil it, but basically, they all discover their superpowers and then have to figure out one, how to unite together across one, meet each other, unite together, and then figure out how to take out whatever the powers, shady powers that be are. But that
Interesting.
show, the storytelling is fabulous. The advocacy, the larger like mission of the show and the story is like really incredible, and can't wait to see what they're going to do for season 2. So I've
Because
been
yeah, I've
telling
been
everybody to watch that
familiar
one.
with all the other things you've done, and I've seen all or most of them that you've done on TV, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll check those out sometime. But then I saw Supercell, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. There's way too much content out there. I've never heard of that. Are they
Mhm.
like 30 minutes, 60 minute? Like, what's the kind of deal for
I
those?
think they're like 51-minute,
Okay,
somewhere in the 50
so
minute
it's more like the hour
realm.
genre. Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah, but
will
really fun.
watch
Lots
a
of fun.
trailer and see.
Okay.
I've got a very long list, but I'll
Yeah.
check that out and I'll put that in the show notes. Supercell,
Supacell.
Supercell, cool.
Cell.
CELL. Okay, cool. Anything else,
Yeah.
Jen?
My other book that I've been reading, Cast. We
Oh,
covered
yeah.
Origins a couple of weeks ago, and it's been a long time since I've fallen in love with a book, but the same way that you like are captivated by a person's brain, and when you talk to them, you're like, I just want to spend all my time with you and pick your brain about everything. That's how I feel about this book. I look forward to getting to read it. I'm like in a work
Very
meeting, like
nice.
can't wait to get to have a break in the day at lunch
Very
and read this
nice.
book. So that's been rock my world.
I remember a couple years ago when that book came out, I listened to some podcast interviews with the author, and I was like, sounds really
Oh,
great. I will listen to or read that one day.
nice. What about
Sarah,
you,
what about
Sarah?
you?
Uh, yeah. I was gonna say Cast as well, so times two.
Cast times two.
Yeah.
It's I love the way that she writes, and
Yeah.
she's such a great storyteller too. It is a dense book. It's a lot to take in, but it doesn't feel like homework to read it. You want to read it. You want to get into these stories, and it's just so brilliantly written. So I can't recommend Cast enough. Um and then a TV show that I got really into recently is Slow Horses. Uh
Yeah.
yeah,
Every week when I put out for the substance community
hmm,
to share what they've been watching, reading, listening to, I feel like whenever there's a season on, there's a couple of people who always say slow horses, and
mhm.
it looks very good.
Yeah, I just blazed my way through seasons 1 through 3 in like
Wow.
a week or two.
Whoa.
I was hooked. I was
That's
like,
fun when you get to do that.
Yeah.
I want to dive into this world, and it was just such a fun. I didn't expect that show to be as funny as it is, but it had me cracking up laughing. So that's just always great when you can have a spy thriller that is twisty and turny and all of that, and it's hilarious at the same time. So I'd recommend Slow Horses. And then a film that I watched recently that is probably pretty polarizing, I would think, but
Oh.
I loved it, is Problemista. And
Okay, that's on my list. Very
yeah,
I definitely have observed it is very polarizing, but I'm
yes.
excited to check it out.
I loved the creativity of it all, and it shines a light on the experience of the American immigration system in a different way than I had seen before. And there's so many creative devices that are used throughout that film that I really appreciated. So I love those movies where they just kind of swing for the fences and just go all out creatively. And I feel like Problemista is one of those.
Hmm.
Very nice. Is that streaming now? I feel like it is.
Yes, I think I
On
watched
like
it
a
on
Hoopla
Max.
or Canopy or Max. Okay.
Nice.
Because I feel is that A24 or
Yes.
Neon? It's one of those like hip labels that have
Mhm.
that might be streaming several places. Because I feel like the library services like Canopy and Hoopla, a lot of times they'll get
Mm.
several of those. But I'll check that out sometime. For me, I'll go to. I haven't been reading quite as much lately. I've been trying to get that back up, but one of the coolest Blu-ray labels that's been out for a couple years now that I've just loved is Radiance, and they do a lot of world cinema genre stuff, and they have two world noir sets. And in the first one, there's a really great movie I watched called Witness in the City. Film noir, love those. This was 1959. Starts off with a pretty shocking for the time murder. This man murders his mistress, and then her husband is trying to seek vengeance on him. And the only witness is a cabbie who's like working the night shift and who sees him going. And it's about like this group of cab drivers who kind of bring this guy to justice. And it was just very cool. And then the other thing that was a surprise for me, I think I heard about it on a podcast. There's way too many series that pop up all the time. They drop all their episodes at once and never give you really time to think about it. But I think this was on a podcast. Somebody recommended it, but the Vince Staples show on Netflix was just a great time. I think there's only like 6 or 8. short, like 30 minutes or less episodes. It's kind of like it's in the vein of Atlanta, but funnier. It's like kind of surreal, very socially alert, but a lot funnier. It definitely gets a little crazy, and it's not quite as polished, and you hate to kind of like pit things against each other. But if you like Atlanta, I would say check this out. It's just a fun, funny show. Like it's smart, it's surreal and kind of crazy, but it's very substantive while also being a very easy, fun watch. So the Vince Staples show, I think it just got also picked up for season 2.
Love it. There's so much to watch. I'll have to add that to my list.
There,
You
and
sold
that's a
me on
super easy
substantive
one.
but fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. We like that.
No, that was, and there's not a ton of episodes. I think for a week or two, I would just download an episode on my phone and just watch it at lunch, and it was just very
Good time.
easy to watch. Most episodes have like a couple of pretty solid laughs, and it's like thought provoking in an easy way.
Nice.
So Sarah Jen, tell us about all the things you guys got cooking up. Where can folks find you guys? What do you want them to listen to, check out? You guys have merch now. Plug your merch. What do you got?
Yeah, so we have we have 2 shows, Movies and Us, and then TV and Us, so you can search for both of those wherever you get your podcasts. And then follow us on the socials, at Movies and Us, and uh, at TV and Us Pod, so just find us in all of the places. And
Oh yeah, I did do one TV and Us with you after at
you
the wrap up of
did.
that
Yeah.
the newest
True
True
Detective
Detective.
season 4.
Interesting series.
Yeah. Go listen to that episode if you want to hear all of our thoughts about that one. But we've got some fun things coming up, including a really fun one that Philip's going to be guesting on here soon in a couple of weeks. That should
Do we
be
want
a
to
good
tease the spooky season calendar? Have you guys announced that yet?
Have we announced that on social yet, Sarah?
No, but we can announce it here.
Yeah, so in the month of October, we're doing a bunch of recommendations from friends of the pod, but we got to end October with a spooky season show. And I hope all of y'all have seen the first of this. If not, that's okay. You can show up for the second one too. We're going to be reviewing Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, #2. The first one was so good, the people were begging for another one. And so they made
You
another one
guys
that we're gonna
both
review.
mentioned it in your best of the past year episode, which I was very. But it was such a dumb movie that honestly, like, I was so glad I saw it opening night at my theater with a ton of people. Because, like, watching it by myself, I don't even know if I would have finished it. But it was fun to, like, laugh at and watch with, like, a big theater opening night.
Mhm.
But that was a very fun episode, you guys. You guys did a great episode on it.
Yeah, we were unhinged, and we can't wait for Philip to join and be unhinged with some shenanigans with us for the second one. Both Sarah and I haven't seen the second one yet, even though it's been out for a while. So
I
better
hear
savor it.
that they paid a legit writer, and I hear that it's like not
The second
incredible,
one's
but
so
I
much
I
better.
hear that it's a lot better,
Yeah,
which it couldn't be
exactly.
much worse.
Not saying much. Yeah, so that'll be a good time.
That
Can't wait for
I
that. It'll be
very
come out, I
much
think,
am
right
looking forward
around
to that.
Halloween. Yeah,
Perfect. We're gonna be doing some horror and substantive cinema for Halloween
nice.
or for October, but I'm very excited for
Season.
Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey Part 2 to hit Peacock so that I can watch it legitimately.
Yes.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you guys. I genuinely I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and I really love your guys's just like the camaraderie and the rapport. You guys have a really fun show, and it's been fun to check out here and there and jump on and chat with you guys. And I look forward to doing it again. And thanks for coming and talking.
Thank you. Yeah, we're doing a full pendulum swing from Columbus all the way to the other side to
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So
Yeah, the
it's
last
gonna
time
be
we
a good
talked,
time.
we did Alien to
Yeah.
Columbus to Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey
Yeah,
Part 2.
really got diversity.
Winnie the Pooh
full
Blood and
pendulum.
Honey Part 2 is like a very unnecessarily long title.
It is, but it's a very necessary movie. in all of our lives.
Absolutely.
I
We really do.
genuinely can't wait to watch it in its
Transformative.
entirety. Legitimate HD version. I was like, should I watch it? Because I just wanted to see it. But then the super nice Blu-ray is
Mm.
region B, and it's very expensive. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just wait. But I'm very excited to talk to you too about it.
It'll be good. Always fun getting to chat with you, and thanks for having us on the pod today. And for a gem of a film, honestly, this was really special. An
Yes.
excuse to get to watch this again.
The best. We go watch Kogonada's other movie, listeners. If you
Yes.
can find them on YouTube or Vimeo or Criterion or whatever, check out his shorts. The man's really got it.
So that was Columbus with Jen and Sarah from the Movies in Us podcast. Really love that movie, and it's always a great time talking with Jen and Sarah. Hope you guys enjoyed listening. Check out their feed, seriously. It's a very easy listen. Check out their show if you want to just kind of listen to some friends talk movies. So yeah, they've been doing it for a long time. Really fun show, and I believe I've got, I don't know, like 4 or 5, maybe the new one is 6 or so. I've got a handful of episodes with them, and it's always been a great time chatting movies. And we did one TV episode on their TVs in Us feed. So either one of those, always a fun listen. We thank you in advance to everybody who has left a 5-star review on their podcast app of choice. And if you want to get more involved in supporting the show, you can do that on Cash App at $the Substance Pod. We've got a lot going on. We will work on Patreon stuff, but right now, if you want to just throw a little bit in the tip jar, that's over at Cash App at $the Substance Pod. Next week, if everything goes according to plan, we will be back in your feed with another Substantive Cinema episode next week on Ryan Coogler's debut feature, Fruitvale Station. And I'll be joined by writer and film critic Zachary Lee. You may have seen him over at RogerEbert.com. He's done a lot with Letterboxd. He's over at Think Christian with our pal Josh Larson. He's all over the place. So, talking some Ryan Coogler with Zachary Lee next week in your feeds. So until then, I've been your host, Philip Marinello, and we will see you next time on The Substance.